Hello, and thank you for attending this powerful presentation on the true cost of college. As a bonus, if you stay with us until the end, you'll receive an email with our senior year timeline. This is a great tool that will help parents get a handle on the process of the entire senior year. Hi, my name is Sally Romero. I'm the community liaison with College Funding Experts. I'm a former elementary school teacher and, more importantly, a mother of 4 children, with 3 of them currently in college. And boy, have I made a lot of mistakes over the last 10 years. So because of that, I take great joy in sharing this information with many, many people about how to get your students into their dream colleges and how to pay for it with as little out of pocket as possible. So let's move on. Keep in mind that the information that you're going to hear today is based on the current laws and regulations. Everything you hear is going to be legal and ethical. This information is very general in nature that you will hear. But because every single family is individual and specific, we also offer a step 2 free consultation, one-on-one, no obligation, with an advisor who will go over your family's information. Every student's path is different and every family's financial situation is different. So I'll give you more information about that at the end. But let's move on. College Funding Experts works with both the parents and the children. We help the children determine which major to choose, which college to choose, which test to choose. So many different ways. We would provide a mentor, help with essays, community service, resumes, everything that the child needs to get into their dream school. Then, on the other hand, we help the parents as well. We help them create custom designed financial strategies to maximize the financial aid that they receive and minimize the negative impact that paying for children's education can have on their family's financial future. Well, how College Funding Experts began was as a 20-year-old wealth advisory, actually a wealth preservation company. What we found out was many of our customers and clients were coming to us as pre-retirees or retirees, and they weren't able to retire on time. The problem was they hadn't planned for their children's college education, or they had thought about their own college education when they were doing their planning. My husband and I always joke about when he was a senior in high school, he received a college scholarship to a state school in California. The tuition was $200 a year. That same tuition now is $7,200 a year. That's gone up 3,500% over the last 40 years. This article by the Wall Street Journal backs up the fact that college is a retirement issue. It talks about how in 2015, many families had their Social Security checks garnished because they had defaulted on their children's student loan. The article on the right was a response on social media from a lady who said she did the same thing with her first child, spent way too much and is paying for it now. So what we want you to know is you don't have to destroy your retirement to send your kids to school. So in our research, we found that the biggest concerns that parents have are to developing a plan to pay for college. And congratulations to you, because by clicking on this presentation, you're actually thinking out a plan for your child. Not having a time to do everything that's involved is another concern that parents have. There's so many articles and websites to look at that it becomes completely overwhelming. But I think parents' biggest concerns is making mistakes. During this presentation, I'm going to share with you a few mistakes that I made, but one of the biggest ones that I made was in filling out the FAFSA. It happened on my 3rd child's 2nd year of college. We had received the financial aid statement, and it was significantly less than the year prior. So I went into the financial aid office and sat with them for about 2 hours. And in going through the 132 questions that are on the FAFSA form, we realized that I had written one number wrong, just one number. And that was going to cost my son thousands of dollars. Well, happily, we corrected it and everything turned out okay. But the sobering fact was that if I had done that the year prior, then I would have probably not even realized how much money he was eligible for. And that's what parents are concerned about, that they're going to do something that will cause their kids not to get the most financial aid possible, or they're going to do something that will hurt their child's chances for college admissions. And then lastly, there's that missing the deadlines, the dreaded deadlines. Do you know that there are an average of 43 deadlines in the average college admission process? College costs are skyrocketing, and they're going up by 7 to 8% every year. Why is this, if people ask? Well, it's easy. Supply and demand, because colleges are a business, big business, the number 2 lobbyists in our country, actually. And colleges know that employers are looking for their applicants to have a degree. And so they have continued to raise tuition up by 7 to 8% each year. Let's talk about cost of attendance. Cost of attendance is different at different schools. Cost of attendance is not just tuition. It's tuition, travel expenses, room and board, books, living expenses, fees, lab fees, computer, phone, everything but the pizza. The cost of attendance is different at different schools. At a UC school, a state school, UCLA, UC Riverside, UC Santa Barbara, the average cost now is cost of attendance, $30,000 a year. Private schools like USC, Chapman, and Pepperdine, they're upward of $70,000 a year. Now you're thinking, wow, if I was to choose a state school, it was $30,000 a year, 4 years could cost me $120,000. Well, that is if your child finishes in 4 years. Do you know that the average student finishes in 5.8 years? Go to any admission page and look at the graduation rate. You'll see a 90-something% graduation rate. But in the bottom, in a footnote, it says based on a 6-year average. So now you're looking at 6 years, multiply that by $30,000 a year, then multiply that by the number of children that you have. And you can see how this possibly could dip into your family's retirement. Well, there's basically 4 ways to pay for college. 5 ways, excuse me. Savings, loans, scholarships, going to a cheaper school, and I'm going to argue that one later, or skipping college altogether. Let's talk about savings first. So even if you had $200,000 burning a hole in your pocket, would it really be a good idea to send that off to the colleges right away? Well, we say no, because there's $245 billion available for families of all types for college aid. And it's always better to use other people's money while you're putting your money to work for you to pay off your home or retirement, whatever you may need for your family. We've seen people who've put on their FAFSA $10,000 in savings, and they've lost $2,500 in college grant money. You see, this is a big game. It's almost like sitting down to a game of Monopoly with someone who on the other side of the table is the only one who knows the rules, and you don't. You have to know the rules before you start. The schools want as much money from you first before they decide to give you any money. And so they're going to try to figure out where your money is. 529 savings plans. This started off as a really good idea, but the Department of Education, through the FAFSA, figured it out. And so now they will ask you, how much money do you have in a 529 savings plan? Maybe it's a plan that a grandparent has left for your children. Before you apply for financial aid, and if you have a 529 plan, we suggest that you sit down with a competent college funding advisor, because the schools will go right for that money first, and you will not receive grants that you could possibly get. Then there's the dreaded student loans. They've definitely got a bad name. But do you know that there are actually some good loans? There's good loans, and then there's bad loans. Many families have to take some sort of student loan when their children go to college. But let's educate ourselves first about what the good loans look like. A good loan gives you a tax deduction. A good loan has a fixed monthly payment versus a variable increasing payment. A good loan is interest-free, and there's good loans out there that gives you the money 4.5 years, same as cash. Once again, take your money, put it to work for you, and use other people's money that's available in student aid and loans, and then do it that way instead. So you need to know what to do before you play the game. Then there's scholarships and all the misconceptions that come with them. First, I want to talk about private scholarships. Private scholarships are offered by private institutions. Banks, stores, restaurants even have them. We also have service organizations like the Elks Club and the Rotary Club. Many organizations, private companies, and church organizations offer scholarships. We've seen them since our children have been babies, when we saw the Gerber Scholarship. So my question to you is, what percentage of the $245 billion that's available in student aid actually comes in the form of private scholarships? Do you have a percentage in your head? Would you be surprised if I told you that the percentage that's available in student aid in the form of private scholarships is just 2%? 2%. Another mistake that I made was wasting time and money going after these private scholarships. I paid money, went to a workshop for 4 hours, and learned how to find private scholarships for 2 of my children who were in 10th and 12th grade at the time. Between the 2 of them, they probably applied for about 30 different scholarships. They had to write an essay for each. And I must add that both of these children are currently college English writing majors. So it wasn't like pulling teeth with them. But we heard back from no one. To them, it felt more like the lottery. So what we encourage families to do is go after the 98% and then go after the 2%. So let's quickly address athletic scholarships that are offered by the institutions. Just so you know, only 2% of high school students receive an athletic scholarship. And the average athletic scholarship is $11,000 a year that they have to continually qualify for each year. So if you're looking at a state school with a cost of attendance of $30,000 a year and you're getting $11,000, you still have a lot of money to come up with. So college costs are skyrocketing, but how do they determine if your family is eligible? Well, let's look at the myths versus reality. Myth or reality? I make too much money. Myth. Doesn't matter if you make $10 or $10 million, there's still plenty of financial aid and grants, free money that don't have to be paid back, available to every family. Now, if you're making $10 million a year, You're probably not going to be eligible for need-based aid, but there's plenty of merit-based aid for every family. Schools want kids for many different reasons, and they want families for many different reasons. Which leads to the next myth versus reality. My child is not a great student. Myth or reality? That is also a myth. Schools are not just looking for a 4.6 GPA with a perfect SAT or ACT score. They're looking for the whole student. SAT scores and ACT scores are very important, but also the whole package of your student. What activities have they been involved in? What kind of community service have they been in? What does their essay look like and their resume? There's many things that schools are looking for. And we're not sure of what every school is looking for, but we help package your children so that they will look the best they can for the school they're interested in. Let's move on to the next one. I own a home. Myth or reality? That one, sadly, is a reality. When you're filling out the FAFSA, they won't ask you much about the equity in your home. But the CSS profile form and some of the other forms that the schools have will ask you, what is the fair market value of your home? How much do you have left on your loan? Once again, going after what you have first before they give you any money at all. Here's a good one. It's a quick and simple process. Well, obviously, you know, it is not quick and simple. So that is definitely a myth. And this one always makes me laugh. College aid officers will help. That's like going to the IRS and asking them to find you the most deductions as possible. The college aid officers are there to protect the endowment and not give it all away. So the big question is, how does my family get their fair share of aid? Well, there's one word or three-letter word that you need to know, EFC, and that stands for Expected Family Contribution. The Expected Family Contribution is a formula that's figured out through the FAFSA. It's based on the parents' and the student's income, the assets, the ages, and number of people in school. When they figure out that number, they take the cost of attendance that we spoke about. Remember, that was the tuition, the room and board, the travel expenses. So let's look at that UC campus number that we threw out there, $30,000. Let's say the FAFSA figures out that your expected family contribution is $10,000 a year. That's kind of like your deductible in insurance. What they will do is they will take the cost of attendance, they will subtract the expected family contribution, and from that number, you'll get your family need. Your family need is how much aid the family is potentially eligible for. So obviously, the lower the EFC, the better. But did you know there are ways to lower your EFC legally and ethically? Let's talk about the different families that we can help before we talk about more about the EFC. Just so you know, we work with all kinds of families. C1 or classification 1 families are families that have probably a little bit too much month at the end of their money, probably don't own a home, and usually have a combined income of about $60,000 or less. These families stand to get the most financial aid possible from both the government and the institutions. But sadly, a lot of these families either don't fill out the forms, or they fill them out wrong, or they have their children or students figure this out, or they don't get them in on time. So filling out the forms accurately and on time can really help C1 families get the maximum benefit for college. Then we also work with the C2 families. These are the classification 2 families that have been trying to do all the right things, They probably own a home, maybe have one of those 529 savings accounts, and doing all the right things. But depending on the school they choose and how their income and assets are positioned, they can receive the maximum amount from schools or absolutely nothing. Then we have the C3 families. These are the families that are blessed with high income, probably several pieces of property, maybe even a corporation or so. These are people that would probably not qualify for need-based aid, but these are the people that can maximize the benefits and strategies and use all kinds of strategies to get merit-based aid and position their assets in a way to get more benefits from the institution. There's also tax laws and amendments that were passed in 2009, 2007, and 2011 that enable high-income families to take more deductions on their taxes. We've seen families receive $25,000 back a year in their taxes. To me, that's just like getting a scholarship. The problem with some families is they think that I'm not even going to apply for it at all because we make too much money. Well, all of the good financial aid all starts with filling out the FAFSA. So every family needs to fill out the forms. And they need to know that it's not just need-based. There are many legal ways to skin the college funding beast, such as cash flow strategies, merit-based aid strategies, student positioning strategies, tax strategies, like I just mentioned, and appeal strategies, one of my favorites, and many, many more. So there are basically four sources of college aid: the federal government, the state government, colleges and universities, and private sources. We've already talked about the private sources being that 2% that we'll go after we go after the 98%. But let's look at federal and state government. The federal and state government is a small amount that's going down every year. The federal government offers a Pell Grant with a maximum aid of $5,500 a year. For that, you do have to have a combined income of $60,000 a year. Even if you receive that $5,500 a year and you have a cost of attendance of a school that's $30,000 a year, you still have to come up with a big chunk of money. So that leaves us with colleges and universities. They're the ones that have all the money. Think about it. Have you driven by your local, even state school or university lately? The one that I went to has changed dramatically in the last 30 years. State-of-the-art performing arts center that is an architectural masterpiece. 3 new parking structures, a brand new gymnasium, and a brand new athletic gym, and also many new buildings. I just visited a UC Irvine with my daughter last week, and on the tour, they had tons of construction. The tour guides joked, "We say that UC Irvine stands for under construction indefinitely." Guess who's paying for that? Well, not only the students through their tuition, but also the state is paying for that as well. The colleges have tons and tons of money. So how do you get that money? Well, it all starts, like I said, with the FAFSA application, free application for federal student aid. You don't get any aid unless you apply, so that means that it has to be filled out fully and correctly. But statistics show that a huge percentage of the FAFSA forms are submitted with errors or consistencies each year. And if they're not submitted correctly, it'll get pushed back 4 to 6 weeks, and all too frequently results in lost financial aid. I spoke with one 20-year-old girl, and she told me how she had put the $5,000 that she had made the year before, she had put a decimal point and 2 zeros, and the computer read it as $500,000 a year that year. So she was rejected for financial aid. Beyond the FAFSA, there's other forms as well. The CSS profile form is the form that many private schools ask for. On that form, they're going to ask you some more detail on your home equity, more detail on your income, assets, and expenses. And also, it must be consistent with your FAFSA. Is it complex? Yes, and definitely somewhat difficult to fill out. More forms. You have a business or you have a farm, there are forms that you need to fill out there. If you're divorced or separated, they want to know all that information as well. Forms, forms, forms. So now we've heard some bad news, but let's look at some good news. All right, not all colleges are created equal. We talked about family need. And one of the things that I love about this slide is it says some schools meet 100% of need. Others meet 30 to 50%. Wouldn't it be great to know the schools that are generous before your child falls in love with them and applies to them? Here's a case study. Remember before when I said that going to a cheaper school might not always be the best option? Let's look at one family, the Jones family, that applied to 2 different schools. Northwestern University, a number 10 ranked university in our entire country. It's a private university in Chicago. And Cal State Northridge, a cheaper state school, which has some wonderful programs, a great business program and a high-level psychology program. But Northwestern University carries a lot of prestige with it. The cost of attendance, COA, is 3 times higher than Cal State Northridge. The EFC, remember that? The expected family contribution stays the same for the family. So it's 78-78 in both respects. But the family need is obviously going to be higher for Northwestern than it will for Cal State Northridge. Here's where it gets interesting. Look at where it says School A. In this situation, for this family, Northwestern, which is known to be a generous school, meets 100% of the family need. So that left the family only having to pay the EFC, $7,878 a year. When we look at School B, Cal State Northridge is notorious, for 55% of need. So that left the family with a shortfall of almost $4,000. Guess who has to pick up the shortfall? The family. So that gets added back into the family need. So for this family, their student was going to be able to attend Northwestern University for under $8,000 a year versus Cal State Northridge for under $12,000 a year. Now, nothing against Cal State Northridge, but if you're an employer and you have 2 applicants and all things are equal except for where they graduated from, who do you think will give a better interview? So, how do you get colleges to increase your award offer? Well, you've got to know this fact first. It's not uncommon for schools to miss award aid packages, under award aid packages. This is actually a fact you can look up. Schools withhold 20% of the aid that they offer in case families come back and appeal. And it's not uncommon for schools to compete with other schools. Remember, they are a business. Think of it as a business. Here is an actual notification letter from Northwestern University to one of our clients. Look at the date of the notification, March 30th. This is where you're going to find many of your acceptance letters and financial aid offers will come the end of March. Here at the bottom is the cost of attendance, or the total budget they have here. It's $61,000. Here is the first offer. Think of it as a first offer, $29,445. This family knew the strategies, how to appeal and ask for more money. So here is the second award notice, second offer, if you will. Look at the date, April 27th. This date is significant because May 1st is right around the corner, 4 days away. What is May 1st? Commitment Day. That's when families will go back to the schools that they've been accepted to and say, yes, Northwestern, I choose you, or no, Duke, I don't choose you. But these schools have saved a spot for the students, plus they've saved that financial aid. So it's almost like they're playing a game of chicken here. Now let's look at the new offer. Wow, $40,695. That's an increase of $11,250 a year. $45,000 over a 4-year period for that family to save. What is that? What is that called? What are they doing? Okay, well, this is a quote from Money Magazine. This whole process is called financial aid leveraging. 65% of private schools and 27% of public schools engage in financial aid leveraging. What is it? This is the process used by universities to determine how little aid needs to be awarded to a particular student to still get the student to enroll. So I have a picture here of a student, and they have chairs in front of them. The reason I chose chairs was because chairs are actually the unit of revenue that the colleges are selling. This student was accepted to 7 different universities: UCLA, USC, Pepperdine, NYU, Cornell, Columbia, and Georgetown. Each of these 7 schools saved a seat and saved financial aid for this student. This student could have chose any of these schools, and he visited all of them. He chose Georgetown. He could have went back to Georgetown and asked them to increase their award. He could have said, USC and Pepperdine are offering me this much. Can you do the same? He could have done that. He chose Georgetown, probably towards the end of April. Now, what you need to understand is now there are 6 chairs or 6 schools that have chairs open, their unit of revenue, and they need to get rid of it quick. Just like in any business that needs to get rid of something quick, what do? They lower the price, or in this case, they offer the family more money. It pays to appeal. All right, so we're going to switch gears for a minute, and you'll understand why in a minute. But I want to talk about community colleges, or some people call them junior colleges. There's a lot of positive things about going to a junior college, and we already know what it is, definitely a savings in money. But there's something that families do not know from in the beginning of it. They don't understand that could be a con for going to a community college. First off, limited curriculum. It's a 2-year college versus a 4-year college. They can only offer so much. Definitely a lighter workload. Larger number of complacent students. I've asked students who attend our local community college, and they will say about 50 to 60% of the students are actually serious. So we as parents want our children to be around the kids who are serious about their education and want to get in the study groups and want to challenge each other. There's definitely a lack of campus life that you won't see at a university. And transferring over, you know, when you come into a new school, it's kind of harder to break into the friend groups of people who've already had 2 years of friends. So that's a little tough. But Here's the number one thing that parents do not understand when they go into a junior college first, that their student may not be able to transfer 100% of their courses to their college. Or worse, their college may require a lot more than the student had thought. This happened to my son, who went to a private Christian school after he received his AA from a community college in our area. He moved on to the private Christian school, and we did not read the very, very, very fine print that told us that he needed to take an additional year, 30 units of religion to graduate from that school. So that meant he would have to go 5 years instead of 4 years to that school. We finished up that year quick and got out and transferred to a state school instead. Very disheartening for us and our pocketbook. Lastly, only 1/3 of students actually transfer from a community college to a university, and that's important to know. So why did I share this? Well, because I like to encourage families to, even if they're going to choose a community college, to apply anyway. Colleges usually offer more to 4-year students each year than to 2-year students. Here's an example. This is definitely an outlier, something that we don't see all the time. This is going to be a huge one and shocking, but this was actually one of our students. Duke University. We've all heard of Duke University. March 26th, the initial award letter. The total budget, $67,000. That's the cost of attendance. The first offer, $12,625. After applying, this family received their response on April 21st. And look at the revised offer, $64,600. This family was going to be able to send their student for 4 years to Duke University for about $2,800 a year. And that would cost less than sending them to a community college. So this is an example of why we encourage families to apply and see what they get first. So let's touch on some of those tax laws that we talked about previously. In 2007, 2009, and 2011, there were amendments put in our taxes that help families pay less for colleges. Is it confusing and complicating? Absolutely. And parents have these questions. Will taking advantage of one of the current tax provisions actually cost you by reducing the amount of aid you would otherwise qualify for? We've seen CPAs use some of these laws in the wrong way and get families $1,000 back in their tax returns, but lose out on $5,000 of financial aid a year. Another question, should you elect the American Opportunity Tax Credit, or do you make too much money to qualify for that? Should you refinance your home to pay for college? What are the restrictions on IRAs used for college expenses? There's lots of questions. It's perfectly legal and ethical to make use of the rules that allow you to get more money. It's the same principles CPAs use to help clients save more money on taxes. You may get thousands more just by knowing the rules that they don't want you to discover. So, how not to become a casualty of the current college tax laws and regulations? Well, you want to start your financial aid and tax planning early. All of your planning for your students for college you want to do early so that you can set up your child's high school experience so it makes it easier for your child to get into their dream school and easier for you to pay for it. So just so you know, when you are filling out the FAFSA, you will be using the tax returns from 2 years prior or from your child's sophomore year. That's why doing planning first will help you so much with getting more financial aid and lowering your EFC. So what are your options? Well, you can do everything on your own. The colleges will love you for it. They'll happily take your money. You can let your accountant do it for you, but tax formulas are totally different than financial aid formulas. Filling out tax returns is totally different than filling out college aid formulas. And we found that accountants tend to apply accounting principles to financial aid, which can destroy the results. So just an example of one family that took control and lowered their EFC. Their first EFC, expected family contribution, came back at $28,703. But using strategies, they were able to lower their EFC to $16,443. That was a difference of $12,206 per year, which meant for them a possibility of getting almost $50,000 more in financial aid over 4 years. So, if you are to hire a college planning specialist, here's some questions that you would want to ask them. What exactly will they do for you? Will they work with your students and with the parents? Will they help your student get into their school and also help the parents plan for the finances? When actually should you start planning? And what's their next step? Here's our promise to you at College Funding Experts. What we do is we create a personal plan to pay your family's out-of-pocket expenses in the most cost and tax-efficient way possible. We interview your student and give them access to the most efficient college prep tools available. Our mentors help your students see the related options to their majors. I love, and I need to mention about the interview process. The students receive a 116-question personality profile. That profile turns into a document that gives them 30 to 40 different career options to choose from. Those career options help students pick a major that will turn into a job. We will also help you pick the schools that give the best financial aid packages. We know the schools that are most generous. We negotiate on your behalf to get the best possible financial aid packages. We fill out all the financial aid forms. Hallelujah. You never have to fill out a FAFSA or a CSS profile again and worry about making mistakes. Lastly, we do income and asset planning recommendations to reduce your EFC as much as possible. So, how many out there are interested in knowing what your financial aid package might look like at the schools you're considering before you apply to them? Also, is anyone interested in any strategies that can help you take advantage of to help increase the chances of enrollment at your student's dream school and make paying for college more easily affordable? Well, that's how our second step, free, no obligation, 1 hour appointment with our advisor, that's how this comes into play. When you meet with an advisor, you will bring them more specific information, and we will use the same software that the FAFSA uses to figure out your EFC. There's actually a website called mytuitionscore.com. You could go to it right now and check it out, and you can fill out all that information yourself. But the cost is $79. Meet with one of our advisors, either in person or over a Zoom call, and you get that EFC for free. In addition, as a bonus, you can bring the 3 top schools your student is interested in, and we can give you the amount that that school would possibly offer your child right now. What great information that you'll walk away with. So one of 3 things will happen at the end of this second free informational appointment. You'll get all the information you need, you're looking for, and you can say, hey, you know what, I've got what I need. Thank you for my EFC. I'll take it from here. And we'll say, you're welcome. Thanks for your time. We'll give you our card and send you on your way, and that we'll let you know that we're here if you need us. Second, you might say, hey, I just need a little help with the student services portion. I'd love someone to mentor my child. I'd love for someone to help them pick the right school and the right major. Can you help there? And we would say, hey, we can do that as well. Or you might be the family that says, you know what? I need to have this whole thing taken off my shoulders, and I need help with it all. So I would like to have you help us with everything, and we'd be happy to do that as well. So the meeting locations for that second free specific one-on-one appointment with an advisor are either through Zoom video conferencing. We do the Zoom video conferencing all across the country, or we'd be happy to, if you live close by, we're in Agora Hills, we'd be happy to come to you, or for you to come to our office. The requirements for this free consultation: it must be scheduled within 2 weeks of today's date. The reason for that is, I'm just sticking up a chat box here for Calendly so that you can see it here. The reason for that is because there's so much information here, and it's really hard to remember everything after 2 weeks that I've taught you, okay? But also, all decision makers must be present, just to be in earshot. So mom, dad, grandparents, whoever is the decision maker needs to be present. Here is the Calendly link that you can click on to create an appointment right away, or send us our information, and one of our college advisors will get a hold of you within 48 hours. Please like us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Go to College Funding Experts. The reason, we'll be putting up pertinent, timely information with deadlines and everything that's new about colleges. We put something on there pretty much every other day. So please like us on Facebook, on social media. And the last thing I want to leave you with is this. In our society, we have coaches and advocates for everything. If you have tax issues, you go to a CPA. If you have law issues, you go to a lawyer. Never before in our society have families needed someone to stand between them and the colleges to help them make the right decisions for their families. We would love if you would give us a chance to help your family. So please take advantage. I'm going to put up that Calendly one more time for you. Please take advantage of the free one-on-one session with one of our college advisors. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.